Well, I was listening to the Lounge podcast with Ryan Mink and Clifton Brown, and obviously they've been at every single one of the OTAs, and so they picked winners of the OTAs. I don't think they picked any losers, so it was just all positive stuff. Now, Bobby, I've obviously been covering the Ravens since 2005. It's been 20 years. I'm not quite the 30-year anniversary, but I'm 2/3 of it. And I remember in my early years, I would fall prey to the OTA hype. Okay. Especially early in my career. Here's an example of hype that I fell prey to. When the Ravens traded Anquan Boldin, okay, after the 2012 season and winning the Super Bowl, people were going crazy, as they should have been. Why would you trade him away, especially with what he meant during that Super Bowl run? And inside the building, everybody was like, well, listen, we've got these up and comers. And I just remember the name Tandon Doss, okay, was the guy. Everybody was like, hey, he's up and coming. He's going to be great. And he did. He looked good in OTAs. I'm feeling good. And then it was like the season came and it's like, where's Doss? What are we doing? Anquan Boldin, Doss, what were we doing? Okay. And I can tell you several times there was hype that I was just buying into. Well, now after being burned a couple times, I'm like, okay, I need to start being more selective and deciding is what was guys that are sticking out during OTAs. Are they here and gone once OTAs are gone, or are they here to stay? Meaning, are they going to carry it into the regular season? So I took 5 comments for 5 different players from Ryan and Cliff. Them talking about guys that really stood out. And it sounds like they did really stand out, so we want to give them their due. But my question after every time we listen to a soundbite, I'm going to push it back to us and say, hey, is this player here and gone after the OTAs, or are they here to stay for the regular season? We will start with a dark horse candidate to fill the shoes of Adarius Washington. You mentioned him earlier, Sanusi Kane. Here's what Ryan and Cliff had to say about him.
I'm going to talk about safety Sanusi Kane. It's another second-year player who 7th-round pick a year ago, really played almost exclusively on special teams. And this year, the Ravens have a need at safety, particularly for that number 3 safety role after Adarius Washington suffered an Achilles injury. That's a big spot for the time being, really big spot. On top of that, Bo Braid suffered what John Harbaugh called a minor ankle injury, as I said before, early this week during the 3rd week of OTAs and has been sidelined for the remainder of OTAs. So that really forced Sanusi Kane into the action, and lo and behold, comes up with an interception the very next day in the end zone. So, and has flashed, got his hand, broke up another pass in that same practice on Tuesday. And I like Sanusi. I think that I think he can be a player.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, and Coach Harbaugh's already said that he's clearly in the mix to be the number 3 guy. There's a long way to go.
Yep.
But he's strongly in the conversation.
Okay, so Bobby, Sanusi Kane taking advantage of an opportunity once Bo Braid went down. Obviously, Washington is down. Gets an interceptions, looking pretty good. My question to you is, do you think that he's here and gone and goes back to special teams once the regular season starts? Maybe they go out and get somebody that like an Eddie Jackson type signing. Hopefully that pans out more. Or do you think he's here to stay and can really fill that Adarius Washington role?
Ooh, that's tough because I think that this is what I'm struggling with. I think Sanusi is going to be a here-to-stay member of this team for the foreseeable future.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's here to stay as safety number 3 in the here and now.
Okay.
So I guess I have to say the former, which is here and gone. But I want to be clear. That's because I think they're going to bring in another veteran.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to give him more time to develop. They need that insurance piece. He's a second-year player that was primarily and a very reliable, highly impactful special teamer last year. And that's where he's made his name through one lone year in the NFL. So it's tough because I do think that he has a bright future. I could see him hanging around like a Geno Stone type did years ago also a 7th rounder that ended up getting a nice bag from Cincinnati. Now, it hasn't worked out too well for him since he landed in Cincinnati, but he developed into a starter for them. I could see that being the case for Sanusi. I'm just not quite there yet.
Yeah, I still feel like they're going to sign, whether it's a safety or a corner. I think they're going to bring in another DB. And I think the way that combination kind of works on the field, I don't think you have to have a safety because he played, some slots sometimes, Darius Washington and things like that. So I think if they bring in another DB overall, a veteran, I think that might squeeze Sanusi Kane out. But I'm with you long term. It's just tough in your second year as a 7th rounder to be able to come in and do that. So maybe more long term, but I'm not quite there yet and don't see him staying in that role throughout the regular season. Let's move on to a veteran. Okay. Here is what the two guys had to say about, let's just stick with the safeties, Malachi Starks.
The way that everyone talks about him, it's almost like, wow, like is there anything wrong with this guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
What? He's a little bit too good.
Right.
Something's got to be wrong.
Right. We'll figure it out. But right now, we can't find it. You know? I mean, obviously, he's got tremendous ability. He's so mature, as Coach Harbaugh mentioned, beyond his years. That's one of the first things that struck me at his press conference. Like, he never met this person and didn't know anything about him other than what he was always on the field. And he handled his first press conference after being drafted to me like he was been around here for 5 years. I'm like, this guy is like, he's how old is he? And he's a rookie. Like, I was just really impressed by that. And so he's taking that same maturity and diligence into OTAs, and he just seems so eager to learn. Coach Harbaugh talked about him, leading walkthroughs among the rookies at the hotel. I mean, who does that? I mean, I'm just I've
never heard that one. That's rare.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed with him as a person and with his ability and his eagerness to learn. I think it is going to translate onto the field.
Yeah. And on the field, he got an interception this week during OTA. So good to see him get his hands on the ball. That's what he is. He's a ball hawk, primarily playing free safety. That's where he projects. And I also saw him just in really good position. Like, things are clicking. When you're in the position, you're around the ball a lot, that's a good sign for a safety. Saw a long catch, and that dude, I do not think he would have held on to the ball if Malachi's playing full speed. Malachi was coming fast and pulled off. But definitely seeing him around the ball a lot on the field, in addition to what you're talking about off the field and just the leadership things and all that. Like, you couldn't be more impressed with Malachi Starks so far.
Bobby, I think this one's easy. Like, he's a first-round pick. The opportunity's there. He is here to stay for sure, starting all 17 games. And I do expect big things from him. That being said, he is for sure being portrayed as like perfection, almost like John Harbaugh has said he really hasn't made any mistakes. These guys are like, is there anything wrong with them here and that? I still anticipate some rookie moments like Nate Wiggins had. I'm trying to think of other guys where early on it's like, things don't look promising. And so I think because he's built up so much that when he does have some rookie moments, people might be, maybe overreact to it. So he's for sure here to stay. It just feels like maybe we can ease off of like this perfection kind of narrative because it just seems like a lot to live up to.
Yeah, there's nothing else that needs to be said there. I think that's perfectly said. He's got to get the terminology down, and after that, he's got to get the speed down, and then he's got to get the pressure management aspect of it down, and all of that in 2 months from now, a little over 2 months from now. That's a lot to ask of a guy who literally went from, okay, maybe I'll be able to kind of be a rotational guy a few weeks ago to, no, I'm going to be a full-fledged starter guy. I better kick it into high gear. And he's handling it with class, to Cliff and Ryan's point. So that's great. That's step number one. There's a lot more steps that are coming up. It's just the man for the job from the looks of it, but it doesn't mean there isn't going to be growing pains along the way.
Absolutely. Every rookie goes through it. Well, how about we move to some more veteran type players like DeAndre Hopkins? I I know that while I was out, Todd Monken, we've described him as wide receiver number 3, and I still think that's true. Todd Monken was like, well, that's not how I see it, and he shouldn't. No offensive coordinator should. I'm sure D-Hop doesn't see him that way, but in terms of like the amount of snaps and targets he's going to get, I think it will turn out to be more wide receiver 3 unless somebody's injured. I don't see him having more targets than Zay or Bateman. That being said, here is they kind of made an analogy to Derrick Henry. So listen to this.
But DeAndre Hopkins, if you go back to the first practice that was open to reporters and OTAs, D-Hop stole the show.
Yeah, just a professional wide receiver in every way. His hands, to me, are still, special. Mm-hmm. And his footwork. He had a couple of sideline catches where he made the catch look a lot easier than it was. It's funny. I actually approached him about, talking more about his kind of acclimation to the Ravens. And he's told me he kind of wanted to wait for that because he just kind of wanted to settle in on getting here and learning and playing as well as he can. I think DeAndre Hopkins is really serious about making an impact with the Ravens. I think he's thrilled to be in this offense. Mm-hmm. What a great third down target to have. What a great, player. You can line up any spot you want to as a wide receiver. So yeah, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, I think if he can stay healthy, I think that he's going to be a guy at the end of the year that people were like, wow, he was even better than I thought. Kind of like we had with Derrick Henry last year. Yeah, everyone knows Derrick Henry's a great player, but I mean, did anybody really expect Derrick Henry to do what he did last year in his first year with the Ravens? Mm-hmm. I think DeAndre Hopkins could exceed some expectations if he can stay healthy.
He's obviously here to stay, but so let me put it this way, that the analogy they have there saying he could be like last year's Derrick Henry, meaning that he could exceed expectations. Is that prediction here to stay?
Oh, so yeah, this is a trickier one, right? Just like what you just said. And then when you think about who's going to be in front of him, you mentioned targets wise, you don't see that Bateman and Zay obviously will not be, he won't be competing with them for targets in terms of a bulk load. I view that the same way as out targeting and out snapping him will be the 2 tight ends too, and likely in Andrews. So there's 4 players right off the bat that are going to be above him in terms of target distribution and whatnot, as they should be and as they've earned. Do I think that he's going to exceed expectations for what a wide receiver 3 has been in Baltimore in recent years? Mm-hmm. A Nelson Aguilar, for example, a couple hundred receiving yards, a couple touchdowns, without question. If it's as simple as that, without question, he's here to stay. Is that fair?
I think that's totally fair. I think the only way that, or I think one way that he could exceed our expectations, which we're on the same page as because of just all the weapons that are in front of him, is if he has undeniable chemistry with Lamar Jackson and Lamar is like, just put him out there because I trust him. You know what I mean? So I still see him in like those third down situations, the red zone situations. Cliff kind of alluded to that. So he could maybe exceed expectations in terms of like touchdowns or creating first downs or whatever. And so if it just becomes something where like Lamar's like, hey, he's like another Mark Andrews or he's like another Isaiah Likely where I know I can just throw it up and get it to him. So I want him out there more often. That's the way he could like push those other guys. But outside of that or injury, I'm with you.
Cool.
Okay, so the next guy they talk about is Rave Kingdom around. I haven't seen Rave Kingdom for a minute.
Which is concerning.
Yeah, where is he at? Where is he at? Because I've got something for Ben Cleveland, okay? We know that the left guard competition features him and Andrew Voorhees. How has Ben Cleveland been looking?
Battle, probably the biggest battle for the Ravens for a starting job on this roster is at left guard. I've liked what I've seen from Andrew Voorhees as he comes back and tries to win that job for a second straight year. He won it last year, but then lost it to Pat McCary after he suffered an ankle injury. But the guy on our list here is Ben Cleveland. Mm-hmm. Tell the listeners why.
Well, he hasn't practiced a lot at OTAs, but he is, it looks like either going to be the starting left guard or certainly the primary backup. And
he's in the race.
He's definitely in the race. He's shown perseverance, and he's such a huge individual. He knows the system well, that I feel that the coaching staff doesn't feel that he has reached his peak, that there's more to get out of him. Mm-hmm. And, you can't coach the type of size he has. Mm-hmm. He's not a guy who, looks lost out there, like he doesn't know the system, and he's not overwhelmed. He hasn't been overwhelmed when he's played. In fact, some of his play has been impressive when he's gotten an opportunity. So this is another opportunity for Ben Cleveland to seize the moment. He had an opportunity last year, did not win a starting job. But this year, I think, his attitude as far as, having another chance to do it is probably, thankful for another chance, certainly more experienced. It'll be interesting. It'll just be interesting to see how it plays out, because I think a lot of people kind of pushed him to the background when last season was over.
I think we both pushed him in the background. I thought for sure he wasn't going to resign after John Harbaugh kind of was brutally honest about why he hadn't earned a starting job yet. And I just thought for sure he wasn't going to return. And then he signed. So to me, that gives hope. But Bobby, I have felt like Ben Cleveland could have been a starter last year. And, he gets good grades when he comes into the game in spot duty. I don't know why he hasn't been able to start, but as much as I would like to see it, because I think he plays well, I think that the prediction of him becoming the starter at left guard, unless there's an injury, I think that's here and gone. I just don't, it hasn't happened for him in 4 years when I thought it could have, especially in that fourth year. And so just because of history, I'm going to say that prediction is here and gone once the regular season begins.
I'm with you. And the elephant in the room is he may not even have a chance right off the jump, because remember what happened this offseason that's still sort of hanging over his head, right? The pleading not guilty is the most recent to the charges of suspicion of DUI. His trial date in Georgia is scheduled for mid-July. Training camp, obviously, a couple weeks after that is typically when things are underway. So the reason why I say he may not even have a shot at this starting job, Sarah, in terms of competition is what if the league disciplines him? Mm-hmm. There could be, that's the elephant in the room here. Could he be facing potential league discipline? Now, I can't imagine it would be all that much of a suspension, you would think, for something. I'm not at all downplaying the significance of DUI. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if he were to get suspended and then he appeal it, maybe it ends up being 2 games or something like that if there were a suspension.
Sure. Certainly not something that a Deshaun Watson, faced years ago.
Right.
Bulk games, half seasons, full seasons, you name it, nothing like that. But I'm just talking about if we're talking right off the gate, right off the bat in terms of starting left guard and seizing that opportunity. I'm not sure if I'm, going to be sticking my neck out there for him on that one. So we're in agreement on this one for sure.
Okay, and then the final one is one Roquan Smith. We know how things went down last year. Didn't seem like he was quite up to what he's normally up to. Didn't seem to be as in shape as he has in the past. Sounds like he changed his offseason regimen, and this is what the guys saw of him throughout the OTAs.
Roquan Smith is fit and ready, man. I mean, that guy every day here at OTAs, and he looks like he's in mid-season form, ready to rock.
Right.
I also will give him a lot of credit because I talked to Trenton Simpson after practice on Wednesday, and Trenton said that Roquan came back this offseason to Baltimore to spend the entire offseason, like 2 weeks after the year ended. Roquan came back, and he and Trenton Simpson have been working together for the entire offseason, watching film, working out together. They've been together. And credit to Roquan Smith for saying, look, I know this young guy who's very talented, has a great attitude, worker. I'm going to do everything I can to make this work.
Right. I mean, Roquan's a unique person. I mean, he's such a leader. He's a leader in a room full of leaders, and that's the type. I'm not surprised to hear that. I'm impressed.
I mean,
but not surprised.
Quite honestly, I think Roquan certainly has made it known he likes to travel too.
Right.
He loves football, pours everything into it, but he also has an life outside of football and has traveled the world and done all those things. He didn't do that seemingly this year. He came back and he worked with Trenton Simpson.
No, I think Roquan, I mean, I know Roquan, how badly he wants that ring.
Yep.
I think that has something to do with it. I mean, he can speak to it himself, but yeah, I mean, maybe if, things would turn out differently, he would be traveling, but, Italy will be there. This opportunity to win a Super Bowl, he can taste it. They all can. And so, yeah, if he can help Trenton Simpson and obviously Roquan himself, I mean, he has high standards for himself. Being in the type of shape he is now in June, to me, is only going to help him in September.
Bobby, the idea that Roquan is primed for a comeback year, here and gone or here to stay?
Here to stay times 1,000.
Yep.
He's pissed off about last year, clearly. And I think these guys are onto something in terms of how he's chosen to handle his offseason so far. Does that mean that travel isn't going to happen between now and the start of training camp once mandatory minicamp's over? No. But to this point, he's been singularly focused. And the fact that he was in that building 2 weeks after a heartbreaking loss, which would have been either in late January or early February, tells you all you need to know. And that also probably is a nice little boost for Trenton Simpson, Sarah, because that partnership did not go successfully through the first quarter of the season, which led to his demotion, which led to then the rotation with Chris Board and Malik Harrison. So I'm taking this to the bank. I'm running there. I might even bike there. It might be an e-bike. Here to stay times 1,000.
And how about Cliff? He's like, hey, Italy's going to be there. It's going to be there. A Super Bowl window is not. So let's go.
Well, the funny part about that, too, is if I'm remembering correctly, Roquan likes a little bit more exotic trips than just Europe. Yeah. I'm pretty sure him and Ronnie went over to friggin' Japan the off-season prior. So these guys like to travel. Not that Europe doesn't have all that and more. There's plenty of exotic stuff going on over in Europe, but Roquan likes to go, long distances.